Why Not Me was a song I recorded for a CD. I was just doing it for the fun, just during the pandemic. Once recorded, my promoters in New York, Nashville, LA, and the UK asked to hear what I was doing, so I presented this song to them. Once they heard it, they suggested that I release it because it was a positive song. They said it needed to be heard with what was going on around the world, and I just didn't think I should because I wasn't trying to redo my music career. But I did, and then when I did, I released it with a video supporting our first responders, because what they were doing during the pandemic was helping the world deal with the crisis we were in, so I decided that was a good thing to do for them. Once the song finished, I had a speech therapist that reached out to me. She worked with autistic children, and she asked if I could do something like that for them. So I re-recorded the song in a more adult contemporary pop version. Then I did a video featuring autistic and special needs people from Nashville, and I called the video Why Not Me Nashville. So I promoted the video on a podcast I was part of to help get more attention to it. Then once that podcast was done, I decided that, maybe I can create my own podcast, and I decided to do it to support autism and mental health around the world. So I named it Why Not Me the World, because autism and mental health affects people worldwide. Just seemed like the thing to do. So Why Not Me the World was developed from that. I launched it in June 28th, 2023. It started as a podcast with 2 episodes a month. Ironically, that just lasted 1 month. I had so many people that reached out to me to be on the podcast, I turned it into a weekly episodic podcast. Since then, the response has just been great. It's shown up on Apple and Spotify charts around the world. Like just today, it's number 3 in health and fitness on Spotify podcast charts. And then just recently, Spotify announced that they have over 4.5 million podcasts on their platform. And again, today, my podcast is number 75 in the top 200 of all the podcasts that they have. So the feedback has been really, really positive. Podcasts, they don't have instant gratification. I have instances where people have reached out to me telling me that this episode or that episode has helped them get through. So it's just one of those things where it's listened to, people hear it. Sometimes I get feedback, sometimes I don't. But overall, just with the charts that it's hit around the world and the downloads I've got and just all the interaction I've received, I'm very pleased with what people are hearing, and I guess they are too. Well, I'm currently working on a Why Not Me the World Humanity Over Handcuffs special event. It's going to run on consecutive weekdays during April, and then in May, it's going to run consecutive days for the whole month of May. And April is Autism Awareness Month, so that's why I'm doing that initiative. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So where my podcast has been just a weekly podcast, I thought that maybe we'd do something special this year and really focus on the things that affect autistic people around the world and just do something on a daily basis and see if we can't create more empathy towards what people are going through. And hopefully, these daily episodes will help support autism and mental health around the world. One of the more interesting people that reached out to me at the same time that I was wondering what am I going to do with this podcast was a story of a lady and her autistic son and her niece that lived in Bulgaria. They moved from Bulgaria to Slovakia, Bulgaria to Prague, Bulgaria to the Czech Republic. And then ultimately they heard that Belgium was a better place for autistic people. So they left Bulgaria. The lady, the son, and the niece left their family, moved across Europe to be in Belgium. They wrote me and told me that listening to my podcast gave them the integrity, the emotions, the inspiration to do it. So that was part of one of the things that actually I sat back and said, okay, this is working because people are listening. You don't get many things like that, and that was a pretty fantastic person that sent me that. Almost Live Nashville. Before I started Why Not Me the World, everyone thought I would be doing a podcast about entertainment. I mean, I live here in Nashville. I work with musicians, singers, songwriters. So that's what everybody expected. When I started Why Not Me the World, it kind of caught them off guard because it wasn't about music. So I gave the podcast a couple years to get entrenched into what I was doing and see what was going to happen with it. Then once it started doing well and I could look at something else, I decided to start Almost Live Nashville. It's been 2 years since I started the first one, so now Almost Live Nashville features musicians, singers, songwriters, actors, actresses, people that work behind the scenes in the entertainment business, and they get to tell the highs, the lows. They look back at their career. Some's been good, some's been not so good, but they've done well, so they can look back at it and tell their stories. So it's been kind of fun just to talk with entertainers that I've known or known by following their careers. And I find that listeners like it as well because the podcast has hit #1 in several countries around the world and stays fairly popular still. So I just keep putting it out there, and hopefully we keep getting new people that's either been behind the scenes or helped others, and they can tell their stories and hope the people that are listening like what they hear. Well, my plans for the podcast is just to continue to have well-known entertainers tell their stories. Just have fun with it. This podcast, it's not going to change the world. Hopefully, though, it can give the listener some enjoyment on hearing the stories that entertainers have had during their lives. And also, these entertainers that I'm having on, they're telling their stories, but they've also have helped change the music industry to what it is today. So it's just about having fun, talking, discussing things, seeing what their life has been, and hopefully everybody likes what they hear. So I would say that I'm a very lucky individual to have 2 podcasts that are doing well around the world and still have a music career here in Nashville. Hopefully to those listening to either the podcast or the music I've produced, it's made their life a little better for that moment in time that they hear it. So I'm pretty grateful to everyone that follows and has followed my journey throughout my music career and my podcast career. When I first started it, I had no idea where it was headed. It was started just to give a little information to people that might not know anything about autism, or they just found out that their child or that they are autistic, didn't know what to do. Because of that, I didn't know how it was going to be received because I didn't have anyone that was autistic in my family. I didn't know anyone that was autistic at the time I started this. So was I going to be viewed as an outsider or were they going to accept me that I'm bringing them information that could help them? I didn't know what to expect, didn't know where it was headed. Then, because the podcast started doing well, I just started flowing with it. At one point, there was a downtime where it seemed like it hit its peak. I thought maybe that I'd done my due diligence with it. That would be the end of it. So I decided to maybe put it into hibernation to see what would happen after I ran out of the podcast that I had already recorded. It didn't even get there. As soon as 2 or 3 weeks later, I started being overwhelmed with more people wanting to come on, more people wanting to tell their stories. I also got more people that were more well-known throughout the autistic community that came on and told their stories. From there, it's just continued to grow to the point now where it's still growing, it's still building, more opportunities are coming for it, it's staying in the charts around the world, and it just continues to surprise me on how it's being received and what people are doing and how they're reaching out and the stories I'm being told by those that either deal with it every day or just finding out that they have to deal with it and how they do handle it. So it's been eye-opening and it's been really informative, not only to the people that listen, but to myself as well. There are a lot of podcasts out there that just throw out whatever they do. They don't do a lot of editing. They just record it, put it up, and that's it. My podcast will take 3 to 4 hours from the time that I first talk with the people. Then I put the editing into it. Then I master it, get it ready to upload to my podcast host, and then ultimately when it goes out. So there's a lot of time put into it that people don't even realize. And it's all that part of trying to make it the very best product that you can, so that when the listener hears it, they hear a conversation rather than just rambling. I've had a couple of people that have made comments to me that they feel that listening to my podcast is like standing on the outside of a room with the door slightly ajar, listening to two people having a conversation. And that's the highest compliment that anybody can give me.